Woods' attorneys told the court today that he waived his arraignment. He pled not guilty to all charges, and he is demanding a trial by jury. We bring back Jody Balsam now. Jody, what was your initial reaction to the news of Tiger Woods deciding to plead not guilty?
Well, it probably arises from what I predicted earlier today when we spoke, which is this is a second offense. It was a potentially life-threatening accident, and the prosecutor is likely to be unsympathetic to any negotiating for mitigated treatment. The penalties for a second DUI in Florida are, even though it's only a misdemeanor, they're pretty significant, and they could even include jail time, license revocation, or a mandatory ignition interlock device that requires you to breathe into your car's ignition in order to start the car. They're pretty onerous penalties. So why go with a jury? Well, first, to try to avoid these severe and mandatory penalties, a jury trial offers a chance for acquittal with higher burdens of proof on the prosecution and the potential to generate some jury sympathy and sentiment in your favor. What could he be contesting in terms of the evidence here? Well, his position, at least as reported by the arresting officer in the police report, was that he was not driving impaired. He merely was distracted momentarily by his phone and by changing radio stations. That could still result in civil liability for damages that he caused or a ticket that results in significant points on his license, but it wouldn't necessarily result in the kind of penalties that a DUI conviction would result in. So this just might be a nothing to lose strategy. If the plea offer that is anticipated from the prosecution includes some of these more onerous penalties, then the potential outcome of a trial wouldn't be substantially worse than the plea officer, and he might have some opportunity to generate jury sympathy here.
How sympathetic are juries in this situation? And do they look at it from Tiger Woods' perspective as someone who's driving a car, probably put people in danger? They tend to lean towards law enforcement on these.
Well, I think DUI is considered to be one of the type of offense that generates the least jury sympathy. But here, we do have a celebrity involved, Tiger Woods, whose personal travails involving his injuries and his surgeries might generate some sympathy. And remember, even though the prosecutor and the court would make every effort to resist special treatment for a celebrity, a jury doesn't have to follow that path. And a jury has to be unanimous, right? A criminal jury would have to reach a unanimous verdict. Even if there is one or two members of the jury sympathetic to Tiger who would refuse to convict, you could have the possibility of a hung jury, meaning that the prosecution would either have to retry Tiger or at that point in time might offer him a softer deal.
Was there anything in today's incident report that would lead you to believe that he would get that kind of sympathy from a jury?
If you're asking me if I feel any sympathy for him, like I said earlier, this was a serious accident. It's by sheer luck nobody was seriously injured. If it's presented that way to a jury, I think they'll have very little sympathy for his taking this risk, especially in an age in which you don't need to be a billionaire. You don't need to be Tiger Woods to hire a chauffeur, right? Anybody can get a rideshare account, and when they are not up to driving, when they are impaired and need to get somewhere, it's not that big a financial burden, and certainly not for Tiger Woods to find a better method of transportation than risking life and limb, his own and others, by getting behind the wheel of a car when he's impaired. And some of what he said to the arresting officer suggests that he knew well that he was impaired. He said he took his prescription medication that morning, including hydrocodone. Everybody knows that that is a serious opioid that can lead to impairment in any kind of challenging activity like driving a car. And a lot of the evidence reported in the police report suggests impairment. His physical symptoms, the state of his face and the sweating and the eyes dilated, his refusal to take a urine test. There's lots of hard facts that suggest that this is a long shot for him and nothing to lose strategy. He doesn't anticipate a better deal if he plea bargains, so he might as well take it to a jury.
Legally speaking, what are next steps for Tiger and his team?
Well, there's typically some degree of information exchange, but the jury trial could be scheduled pretty quickly. There's no real reason to delay. There aren't many witnesses beyond Tiger, the arresting officers, and perhaps the gentleman who was driving the car with which Tiger collided. I haven't heard of any witnesses on the street where the accident happened, so there should be a lot of prep time to get in front of a jury with this case. Now, there may be reasons that Tiger will want to delay. There are speedy trial provisions that require trials to take place expeditiously, but if the defense seeks delay, usually a court will grant it if it's for good reason. But in terms of the sort of lawyering prep one needs to do to try this case, there shouldn't be any reason it would take more than a few weeks to get in front of a judge if the docket is available.
Thank you again for your expertise. I'm sure this isn't the last time we'll have you on. Thank you again.
Sure.
We'll take a look at the report that was released today by the Martin County Sheriff's Department. It's from the probable cause affidavit. Woods told deputies he was looking down at his cell phone, changing his radio station, did not notice the vehicle in front of him had slowed down. Deputies noted several signs of impairment. Woods' eyes to be bloodshot and glassy. His pupils were extremely dilated. He was also sweating profusely, he was sitting in the back seat of a vehicle which had cool air running through it. Woods' movement was lethargic and slow, according to the report. Woods also advised deputies he took prescription medication earlier in the morning. And deputies found 2 white pills were found inside his pants pockets. The pills were later identified as hydrocodone.